You've been lied to about sleep. They told you it comes when you finally stop worrying, when your room is perfectly quiet, when your body is completely tired. But if that were true, why do so many people collapse into bed exhausted, only to lie awake staring at the ceiling, trapped in thoughts they can't turn off? Why do you wake up in the morning still tired, still heavy, as if your body never truly rested? The truth is, deep sleep isn't something you force. It's something you fall into when your mind and heart finally let go. And for centuries, Buddhist stories have held the secret. Simple parables told under moonlight, gentle teachings whispered in monasteries, tales of rivers, lotuses, and wind. They carry the medicine your soul has been waiting for. Not sleeping pills, not endless scrolling, but inner healing, the kind that clears away the noise so your body can sink into rest as natural as nightfall. These stories dissolve the weight of your day, release the tension you didn't know you were holding, and guide you into a sleep so deep it feels like your spirit is being renewed. Tonight, as you listen, your mind will stop fighting, the worries will loosen their grip, your breath will slow, your body will soften, and sleep will find you gentle, natural, unstoppable. And when you wake, you won't just feel rested, you'll feel healed, lighter in spirit, stronger in heart, clearer in mind. This is not just another bedtime story. This is 3 hours of Buddhist wisdom woven to carry you into the deepest sleep of your life and to heal the places inside you that even dreams cannot reach. Are you ready to let go, to drift, to heal? Then close your eyes, the journey begins now. The night is quiet now, and your mind is beginning to soften after hearing these words. But before you drift deeper, there is a story waiting, one that carries an ancient key to stillness. It begins not with thunder or fireworks, but with something so ordinary that most people overlook it: a pond. Yet in its stillness lies a mirror of the mind, and through it you will discover how to release the turbulence inside you so that deep sleep can finally hold you. Long ago, in a small Buddhist monastery hidden between hills, a young monk was restless. Each night he closed his eyes and tried to meditate, but his thoughts pulled him in every direction. He worried about his future, replayed the mistakes of his past, and found himself trapped in storms of thought that left him drained even after hours of sitting. One evening, his teacher led him outside to a pond at the edge of the temple grounds. The moonlight rested on the surface, but the water was disturbed, rippling with every gust of wind. "Do you see this water?" the teacher asked softly. "This is your mind when you cling to thoughts. You cannot see the moon clearly when the surface is shaking." The monk leaned closer, noticing how the reflection twisted and broke into fragments. "And what happens when the wind stops?" the teacher continued. The young monk waited in silence, and as the air grew still, the ripples settled until the water reflected the moon perfectly. In that moment, the monk understood. The pond is not special. It does not force itself into calmness. It only settles when nothing disturbs it. The same is true for the mind. When we stop feeding it with constant judgment, analysis, or resistance, it naturally returns to stillness. This story is not about magical powers. It is about the art of allowing. Sleep becomes possible not when you demand it, but when you let the pond of your mind rest without interference. Modern science echoes this wisdom. Neuroscientists have discovered that the human brain is designed to wander, producing thousands of thoughts each day. But when we give too much attention to every single thought, the brain remains stuck in overdrive. The mind becomes like stormy water, unable to rest. Studies on meditation show that by practicing non-judgmental awareness, people can reduce the activity in the brain's default mode, network, the part responsible for repetitive thinking and rumination. When that activity decreases, calmness increases. This is not mystical, it is biological. What the monk saw in the pond centuries ago is the same truth revealed by brain scans today. A settled mind is a natural mind. But how do you settle it when you feel overwhelmed, when the day refuses to leave you, when sleep feels far away? The key is not to suppress thoughts, but to observe them as ripples on the surface of your pond. Let them rise, let them fade, without jumping in. In Buddhist practice, this is called bare attention, watching without judgment, like a silent witness. You do not need to push thoughts away, for that only creates more disturbance. Instead, you let them pass as gently as clouds sliding across the sky. Slowly, the turbulence weakens, the surface clears, and sleep begins to enter, not as an enemy conquered, but as a guest welcomed. There is another story often told in the temples of Thailand. A traveler arrived at a village complaining that he could not find peace anywhere. He carried heavy bags and wandered from place to place, yet still his heart was restless. The old monk he spoke to handed him a cup filled with water and said, "Stir this." The traveler stirred until the water turned cloudy. "Now wait," said the monk. Minutes passed and the traveler grew impatient, wanting the water to clear faster. But the monk simply shook his head. "The more you want it to clear, the longer it stays cloudy. But if you leave it alone, it will settle on its own." The traveler watched as the dirt sank to the bottom, leaving the surface clean again. Then he understood. His mind was like that cup. He had been stirring it every day with his constant craving and worry. We often do the same at night. We stir our minds with replayed conversations, imagined problems, endless planning. We believe we are solving something, but really we are only keeping the water muddy. True rest comes when you set the spoon down, when you stop stirring. The moment you release the urge to fix every thought before bed, clarity returns and healing begins. This teaching does not mean abandoning responsibility. It means understanding that night is not the time to carry the weight of problem solving. The night is the time for settling. Your body heals, your mind repairs itself, your heart regains strength, all while you rest. Trying to solve tomorrow's problems tonight is like planting seeds and demanding fruit in the same moment. Nature does not rush, and neither should you. Sleep is nature's rhythm, and it comes when you align yourself with it rather than resist it. Researchers studying sleep cycles confirm this wisdom. They found that people who practice mindfulness before bed fall asleep faster and experience deeper stages of non-REM sleep, the kind where the body truly repairs itself. Why? Because mindfulness mirrors the still pond, it reduces the noise of intrusive thoughts and allows the nervous system to reset. This is the modern language for what Buddhist teachers have been saying for centuries. Let the water settle. The pond also teaches us something subtle. Reflection is only possible in stillness. When the surface is agitated, the moon cannot be seen. In the same way, when your mind is restless, you cannot see clearly what you feel or need. You mistake shadows for truth, fears for reality, and you suffer from illusions. But when you let the mind rest, clarity appears on its own. Suddenly you realize that the problem keeping you awake may not be as heavy as it seemed, or that the answer is simpler than you thought. This is not because you forced yourself to think harder, but because stillness revealed what was already there. Sleep itself becomes a form of wisdom, your subconscious untangling knots that your waking mind could not. One of the most beautiful aspects of this teaching is that the pond does not choose what to reflect. It shows the moon, the stars, even the passing bird or falling leaf. The mind, when still, can hold everything without resistance. This is healing in its purest form. To stop fighting your thoughts, to stop fearing your emotions, to let them appear and disappear like reflections on the water. When you lie in bed with this attitude, nothing feels like an enemy. Not the restless thought, not the memory, not the sensation in your body. All are ripples, temporary, harmless. This acceptance is what allows sleep to arrive naturally. In daily life, you can practice this even outside the bedroom. Pause during the day and notice how your thoughts ripple when someone criticizes you, when plans change, when you feel uncertain. Instead of reacting immediately, breathe and let the ripple fade. This builds the habit of calmness so that at night, when the storms usually come, you already know how to settle them. The pond inside you becomes familiar territory, not a battlefield. There is also a lesson about depth. On the surface, ripples disturb the reflection, but deep down the pond remains untouched. Beneath the turbulence, the water is still, silent, calm. In the same way, no matter how stormy your thoughts, there is a deeper layer of mind untouched by noise. Buddhist teachers call this the original mind, the pure awareness that remains steady through all change. When you rest in that depth, nothing can truly disturb you. Sleep becomes effortless because you are no longer identified with the surface ripples. You are resting in the silent depth. Some monks train by sitting near water for hours, listening to its stillness. They say that when you listen deeply, you realize the pond is not empty. It is alive with subtle movements, yet never chaotic. That is the balance you can bring to your own rest. Stillness does not mean absolute silence or the absence of all thought. It means harmony, where movements come and go without resistance. Thoughts may appear, sensations may rise, but they do not disturb the whole. Sleep comes when you no longer fear the presence of movement within you. And so, as you hear these words, let your mind rest like that pond. Feel the ripples of the day, the conversations, the worries, the expectations slowly sinking. Do not chase them away. Do not stir the spoon. Simply watch them settle on their own. This is the gentle power of Buddhist wisdom, the art of not forcing, the strength of allowing. In this stillness, your body begins to heal. Your mind clears, your spirit breathes again, and sleep comes, not as something earned, but as something given. The pond has taught us how the mind clears when it no longer fights with itself, how sleep arrives when we stop stirring the water of thought. Yet stillness is only one part of the path. There is another wisdom in nature, one that shows us not only how to be calm, but how to release, how to bend without breaking, and how to let go of what we hold too tightly. It lives in the quiet groves of bamboo. To walk among them is to feel a different kind of teaching, one that carries the secret of resilience and surrender, and tonight these stories will show you how that secret can free your heart from the weight of daily burdens, so that rest can finally deepen. The bamboo has always been revered across Asia, not only for its strength but for its humility. Unlike the oak that resists the wind, bamboo bends and rises again. In typhoons, whole forests of bamboo sway, bowing so low they almost touch the ground. Yet when the storm passes, they stand tall once more. Farmers and monks watched this for centuries and came to see in it a living parable of the mind. To resist life's winds is to break. To yield is to endure. And this endurance is not weakness, it is strength that flows rather than shatters. In sleep, the same wisdom applies. If you cling tightly to thoughts, to worries, to the need for control, you resist the natural rhythm of rest. But if you allow your mind to bend, to release its grip, you will rise restored when the night has passed. There is an old Zen story of a master walking with his student through a bamboo grove after a storm. Many stalks were bent, weighed down by rain, and the student asked if they would die. The master shook his head and smiled. By morning, they will rise again. Their secret is not in fighting the rain, but in letting it fall. Learn from them, and you will carry no burden into your sleep. This is the essence of letting go, not to deny that the storm exists, but to meet it with such surrender that nothing remains heavy within you. Modern psychology has found something remarkably similar. Studies on resilience show that people who adapt rather than resist stress are less likely to suffer from anxiety or sleeplessness. Flexibility of mind, accepting what cannot be changed and adjusting with it, is linked to better recovery, both physically and emotionally. The bamboo is a living model of this truth. Its fibers are strong yet hollow, allowing it to bend without snapping. This hollowness is its wisdom. In the same way, when you keep space in your mind and do not overfill it with clinging thoughts, you too can bend without breaking. At night, burdens often feel heavier. Thoughts about mistakes, regrets, or things left undone cling to you like wet clothes. To carry them into bed is to deny yourself rest. The bamboo whispers a different path. Drop what you cannot carry through the night. It is not abandonment, but wisdom. Tomorrow will come, and you can lift what remains. But for tonight, release. Think of how the bamboo lets each raindrop slide away down its smooth stalk. It does not trap the water. It does not demand to hold it. This is the practice you can bring to your own mind. When a thought arises, let it slide away. No need to trap it, no need to argue with it. In this way, your mind empties itself and becomes light enough for sleep to embrace. Another lesson of bamboo is patience. It is known that when bamboo seeds are planted, sometimes nothing visible grows for years. Farmers tend to the soil, water it, wait through seasons, and still see nothing above ground. But beneath the earth, roots are spreading wide, preparing for sudden growth. Then, in a single season, shoots rise higher than a man's head almost overnight. The teaching is clear. True growth often begins unseen. Rest works in the same hidden way. You may think that lying down and doing nothing is wasted time, but beneath the surface, your body is repairing, your heart is recovering, your mind is building strength for tomorrow. To rest is not to waste life, but to prepare for its growth. Letting go of the demand to see results immediately is part of this healing. Just as the farmer trusts the bamboo to rise in its own time, you must trust your rest to work unseen. In daily practice, this surrender can take many forms. It may mean setting down the mental load you carry when you finish your work for the day, refusing to rehearse tomorrow's conversations, choosing instead to give the night back to rest. It may mean forgiving yourself for not finishing everything, for being imperfect, for being human. Forgiveness itself is a form of letting go. Without it, your sleep will always be shallow, for your heart cannot rest when it still clings to self-punishment. The bamboo teaches kindness through release. No stalk resents the rain that bends it. It bows, it accepts, it rises again. There is also beauty in the way bamboo grows together. Unlike many trees that stand apart, bamboo shoots rise in clusters, forming groves so dense they seem to breathe as one. This interconnection gives them strength. When wind blows, they sway together, supporting one another. The lesson here is that letting go does not always mean standing alone. Sometimes it means leaning on others, sharing your burdens, speaking what troubles you instead of locking it inside. To share is to lighten the load, just as one stalk leans into another. When you release in this way, your mind relaxes, knowing it does not have to carry everything alone. Scientists studying sleep have shown that people who carry unresolved emotional burdens, unspoken pain, unexpressed feelings, often suffer from insomnia. The act of expressing, of releasing through words or even through journaling, allows the nervous system to relax. This is bamboo's lesson in modern terms. Bend, do not hold rigidly. If you must cry, cry. If you must speak, speak. If you must write, write. These are ways of bending, not breaking. Another parable tells of a monk who once tried to chop bamboo to build a hut. Each time he struck, the bamboo bent instead of breaking, and he grew frustrated. His teacher said, "Do you see how it bends? This is why it endures. You try to conquer it, but it survives by yielding." In life, We often try to conquer every situation, every thought, every fear, yet sleep asks us to do the opposite, to let go of conquering and to yield into softness, to bend into the arms of the night. This surrender is not only spiritual but physical. Research on relaxation response shows that when people practice letting go of muscle tension, their brain signals shift into patterns linked with deep sleep. Each release of the body is mirrored by release of the mind. You can practice this by simply noticing where you hold tension in your jaw, your shoulders, your stomach, and releasing it as the bamboo releases weight when it sways. Bit by bit, your body learns the art of surrender, and the night welcomes you deeper. Letting go also means not defining yourself by what you hold. Bamboo is hollow, yet strong. Its emptiness gives it purpose. In many temples, bamboo flutes are made from this hollow stalk. Music arises not from what fills it, but from the space within. Your own healing is found in the same principle. Sleep is not about adding more thoughts, more control, more effort. It is about emptying, creating space, letting the music of rest arise from within that space. When you feel overwhelmed, remember the flute. Its song comes only because it is empty. And so the grove teaches us, through its bending, its patience, its strength in togetherness, and its emptiness, that letting go is the only path to resilience. In the silence of night, this wisdom becomes a lullaby. The burdens of the day no longer need to cling to you. The rain of worries can fall and be released. The winds of uncertainty can blow, and you can bend. You need not resist, you need not break. You only need to yield like the bamboo, surrendering into rest, trusting that when the morning comes, you too will rise again light, strong, and renewed. The bamboo has shown us that strength lies not in holding on, but in releasing. That true resilience is found in the art of bending and rising again. Yet there is another lesson that flows naturally from this truth. Letting go creates space, and that space itself becomes a gift. To receive rest, the heart must be open, not crowded, not overflowing with demands. In Buddhist tradition, this wisdom is taught through the image of the empty bowl. At first glance it seems so simple, but the depth of its teaching reaches into every corner of life, and tonight it will guide you into sleep without struggle. A bowl is only useful when it is empty. When it is already full, nothing more can enter. This is why monks carry their alms bowls through villages each morning with nothing inside. They rely not on their own possessions but on the generosity of others, and they do so with humility, knowing that a filled bowl cannot welcome new nourishment. In the same way, the mind that is cluttered cannot welcome rest. When you lie down at night carrying the noise of the day, your bowl is already overflowing. There is no room for sleep to enter. Only when you empty it, setting aside the thoughts, the plans, the expectations, can rest pour in naturally. This teaching reaches deeper than just quieting thoughts. Emptiness in Buddhism is not a void of nothingness, but a spaciousness that allows life to flow freely. When the bowl is empty, it is not barren. It is open, receptive, ready. Sleep is like the food offered into the monk's bowl. It cannot be forced, it can only be received. This changes how we approach the night. So often we try to grab at sleep, to chase it, to command it. But sleep does not obey force. It comes when you stop filling the bowl with effort and let it be empty. In a Zen story, a scholar once visited a master to learn about enlightenment. The master poured tea into the scholar's cup until it overflowed onto the table. "Stop," cried the scholar, "it is full already." The master smiled. "Like this cup, your mind is full of your own opinions and judgments. How can I teach you unless you first empty it?" This same parable applies directly to rest. How can sleep enter when your mind is already full of struggle? Emptiness is the doorway. Modern psychology supports this idea. Studies on sleep hygiene show that people who ruminate, who continuously replay events or worries, struggle to fall asleep and stay asleep. Their bowls are full, their minds too crowded for rest to arrive. Therapies like mindfulness and acceptance-based practices encourage releasing thoughts rather than clinging to them. In effect, they teach the same lesson as the empty bowl: create space, and healing will come on its own. There is also a subtle beauty in how emptiness allows for receiving without resistance. A bowl does not argue with what is placed inside. It does not demand or reject. It simply holds. In the same way, when your mind is empty, sleep is received with ease. You are no longer battling with yourself, no longer saying, "I must sleep now," or "Why can't I rest?" Instead, you are open, willing to hold whatever comes, whether it is silence, dreams, or deep rest. This receptivity itself is healing. In daily life, most people equate emptiness with loss. To be empty feels frightening, as though something is missing. But Buddhist wisdom teaches the opposite. Emptiness is freedom. It means you are no longer weighed down, no longer bound to constant grasping. The bowl without clutter is not poor. It is ready. Your mind at night, when emptied, is not lacking. It is prepared to receive the deep nourishment of sleep. This lesson extends beyond the mind to the body as well. When monks eat from their bowls, they practice mindful consumption. They do not rush, they do not overfill, they accept what is given and nothing more. This moderation reflects balance. At night, emptiness in the body is also important. Heavy meals, stimulants, and excess activity all keep the body too full to rest. To come to sleep with lightness, neither starved nor stuffed, neither exhausted nor overstimulated, is to prepare the bowl of the body to receive rest. Another story tells of a monk who cleaned his bowl each night, carefully washing away every grain of rice before placing it upside down on the shelf. One day, a novice asked why he was so meticulous. The elder replied, "If I leave even a little behind, ants will come. Small things attract more, until the bowl is no longer clean. To keep it pure, I must empty it fully each night." This is a mirror for our own habits. If you leave small thoughts unresolved, they multiply. A minor worry can become a swarm of restless energy, preventing rest. To truly receive sleep, you must clean the bowl of your mind, even of the smallest grains of concern. In science, this clearing is reflected in the role of the brain's glymphatic system, which activates during deep sleep to wash away toxins and waste. Just as the monk cleans his bowl to keep it pure, your body requires emptiness to begin its nightly cleansing. When you surrender to sleep, your brain literally rinses itself, leaving you refreshed in the morning. But this natural process can only begin when you stop filling the bowl with thought and tension. The bowl also symbolizes humility. To carry it empty into the world is to admit need, to accept dependence. At night, this humility is essential. To fall asleep is to admit you cannot control everything. You cannot hold the world together by staying awake. You must surrender, acknowledging your limits, allowing life to continue without you for a while. This humility itself is a form of emptiness, a recognition that you are not meant to carry every burden endlessly. When you set them down, sleep embraces you. There is wisdom, too, in the shape of the bowl, open, curved, with no sharp edges. It accepts whatever is given. This openness is what you can cultivate before sleep. Instead of fighting dreams, resisting feelings, or forcing relaxation, you can become like the bowl, round, open, soft. Let what comes, come. Let what leaves, leave. This gentle receptivity prevents the inner struggle that so often robs rest. In daily practice, you can empty your bowl in many ways. Some people find it through meditation, watching their breath until thoughts fade. Others find it through journaling, pouring out their worries onto paper so that the mind is no longer crowded. Some find it in prayer, handing their burdens to something larger. All are acts of emptiness, of creating space. What matters is not the form, but the intention, to arrive at night with a bowl ready to receive. This is also why rituals before bed are so powerful. Monks chant, bow, and prepare their bowls with care. These small acts tell the mind it is time to empty. You too can create such rituals, dimming the lights, setting aside your phone, drinking a warm cup of tea, breathing deeply. Each act is a grain removed from the bowl, each one a signal that the day is done and the night has begun. Over time, these rituals carve a pathway to emptiness that welcomes sleep effortlessly. Let us not forget that an empty bowl can be shared. In monasteries, food is often distributed among monks, each one offering and receiving in turn. This practice reminds them that life is not about holding tightly, but about flow. In your own rest, sharing may mean releasing burdens in conversation, allowing others to support you, or offering kindness so that your heart is not heavy with resentment. To forgive, to share, to release these acts empty the bowl of bitterness and make space for peace. And so, the empty bowl teaches us that sleep is not something to grasp, but something to receive. It shows us that emptiness is not loss but readiness, that humility and release are the gateways to healing rest. When your mind is cluttered, when your body is tense, when your heart is heavy, you must set them down. Empty the bowl. Only then can the nourishment of deep sleep enter and renew you. When you wake, you rise with a bowl ready again to meet the day, knowing that each night you can return to this practice of emptiness, this gift of rest received without struggle. The bowl has taught us that true rest is not taken by force, but received through emptiness, through the willingness to set aside what is already full and allow the night to pour into us. Yet the path does not end there. Emptiness opens the way, but what grows from that emptiness is a mystery of its own. For in the still hours, when the world grows silent and the weight of the day has faded, a hidden flower begins to unfold, one that few ever see. It is the lotus that blooms at night, a rare symbol of healing that speaks not through brightness, but through the quiet work of darkness. The lotus has always carried meaning in Buddhist teachings. Rising from mud yet opening into pure petals, it embodies the truth that beauty and clarity emerge from struggle and obscurity. Most people know the lotus as a flower of daylight, a symbol of enlightenment shining in the Sunday. But some species open only under the moon, hidden from the gaze of the busy world. They are quiet healers, teaching that transformation often happens in places unseen. When you close your eyes to sleep, your body and spirit enter the same kind of silence. Growth, repair, and renewal happen not in the noise of effort, but in the unseen rhythms of night. This is a reminder that not all progress is visible. The world often celebrates loud victories, visible success, constant motion. Yet the deepest healing takes place where no one is watching. Cells regenerate, the brain clears toxins, emotions untangle, the heart resets its rhythm. Just as the nocturnal lotus opens without audience or applause, your healing unfolds while the world sleeps. Accepting this truth allows you to let go of the pressure to always see or measure your progress. Sleep teaches that not everything valuable must be visible to be real. There is a story told of a monk who sat by a pond at dusk, waiting for the famous lotus flowers to close. But one remained, pale and luminous, opening wider as the night deepened. He realized then that its beauty was reserved not for the sun, but for the moon. The lesson he carried was that each being has its own rhythm, its own season of blooming. You may not thrive in the same ways or times as others, but that does not make your growth any less true. At night, when you feel still and hidden, your own lotus may be opening quietly within, guiding your healing in ways the world cannot see. Modern science confirms the wisdom of hidden growth. During the deepest stages of sleep, the brain consolidates memories, strengthens learning, and balances emotions. The immune system releases proteins that repair tissues and fight illness. Hormones regulate growth and restore balance. None of this is visible in the moment, yet it is essential for survival. Just as the night lotus does not announce its bloom, your body's healing in sleep does not call attention to itself. But without it, life cannot flourish. The symbolism of blooming in darkness also carries an emotional truth. Many people associate the night with fear, loneliness, or uncertainty. Yet Buddhist teachings invite us to see night as sacred, as the time when silence reveals what light often hides. The lotus that opens in darkness teaches us to trust the unseen, to trust the process unfolding, even when we cannot name it. When you surrender to sleep, you step into this hidden garden where healing arises without your control. There is also resilience in this nocturnal bloom. To thrive in darkness requires adaptation, strength that does not depend on constant external validation. The night lotus does not need the sun to prove its worth. In the same way, your healing does not need to be displayed for others to recognize. Many struggles you carry are faced alone in silence. Many transformations occur within, unseen by the eyes of the world. Yet they are no less real. Sleep becomes the sanctuary where these hidden changes take place. In daily life, the lesson of the night lotus can shift how you view rest. Instead of dismissing sleep as passive or unproductive, you can see it as sacred work. To close your eyes is not to waste time, but to enter a secret chamber where your deepest healing takes place. The world may not value this silence, but your body and mind depend on it. By honoring sleep as a form of unseen blooming, you give yourself permission to rest fully without guilt. There is a story from Japan of an old gardener who tended lotus ponds. He told a child watching him, "These flowers teach patience. The ones that open by day remind us to shine, but the ones that open by night remind us to heal." The child asked why the night lotuses hid their beauty from most people. The gardener replied, "Because not everything beautiful is meant to be seen. Some things are meant to be felt." This truth applies to the way rest nourishes you. You may not see the healing, but you feel it when you wake with a lighter heart, a clearer mind, or a body less burdened by pain. Scientific studies on emotional regulation show that during sleep, particularly during REM stages, the brain processes and integrates emotional experiences. Painful memories soften, intense feelings are balanced, and new insights emerge. This is healing that happens without conscious effort. The night lotus blooms within your mind, releasing what is heavy and restoring balance. By the time dawn arrives, you may feel different without knowing why. The night lotus also teaches us about trust. It does not resist the darkness, nor does it fear it. It surrenders to it and uses it as the condition for growth. Many people lie in bed fearing the night, dreading their racing thoughts or restless feelings. But if you approach the night as the lotus does, as a friend, as a partner in healing, your relationship with rest transforms. Darkness no longer feels like an enemy, but like fertile ground. This trust allows you to let go of resistance and slip naturally into the healing silence of sleep. There is beauty in how the night lotus stands as a reminder that healing does not require perfection. Its petals open not in bright, flawless light, but in shadow, in obscurity. This is a call to release the demand for perfect conditions before you allow yourself to rest. You do not need to fix every problem, silence every thought, or arrange your life into perfect order before you deserve sleep. The lotus teaches that healing happens even in the midst of imperfection, even in the mud of confusion. To rest in darkness is to accept your humanity and allow life to work through you as you are. In practice, this means you can prepare for sleep not by chasing the perfect environment, but by cultivating acceptance. Yes, you may still have worries. Yes, there may still be noise or imperfection. But none of this prevents the lotus from blooming. None of this prevents healing from unfolding within you. By allowing rest to happen in imperfect conditions, you align with the natural wisdom of the night lotus. The nocturnal bloom also symbolizes the sacredness of silence. Silence is not empty, but full of unseen activity. The monks who meditate at night say the silence of those hours carries a depth unlike daytime. It is as if the world itself is resting, and in that collective stillness, your own mind can sink more deeply into peace. To listen to the silence of the night is to feel the lotus opening within you. Silence becomes not absence but presence, a companion guiding you into sleep. Another lesson comes from the lotus's roots. Though its flower rises above the water, its strength comes from anchoring deep in the mud. Healing, too, is rooted in the parts of you that are not always beautiful. To look at the pain, the mistakes, the shadows. At night, when the conscious mind rests, these roots are nourished. Sleep integrates your experiences, both light and dark, so that new growth can rise. This is the hidden work of healing, not erasing the mud, but transforming it into nourishment for your bloom. When you rise in the morning, you may never have witnessed the lotus bloom, yet its work was done. In the same way, you may not remember the hours of sleep or the details of dreams, but your healing has happened. The silence has carried you through renewal. Trusting this unseen process is the heart of the night lotus's teaching. You do not need to see it for it to be real. You only need to allow it. And so the lotus that blooms at night becomes a mirror of your own hidden healing. It teaches that rest is not emptiness but quiet transformation, that silence is not absence but presence, that darkness is not loss but fertile ground. To surrender to sleep is to enter the hidden garden where your lotus waits, unfolding its petals in the stillness of the night, renewing your body, softening your heart, and preparing you to meet the dawn renewed. The night lotus has shown us that healing does not need the light of day, that renewal often unfolds quietly in silence where no one sees. Yet silence itself has a voice, a movement that cannot be held but only felt. When monks sat through the long hours of darkness, they often listened not just to stillness, but to the shifting wind around them. That sound became their teacher, reminding them of impermanence, of the way everything moves and changes, of how no storm, no thought, no fear ever stays. To those who carry anxiety, the whispering wind holds a rare medicine, for it shows us that all things pass, and in knowing this, the heart can finally rest. The wind cannot be seen, yet its presence is undeniable. Leaves tremble, doors creak, grasses bend, and the air itself changes with each current. Monks called it a perfect teacher because it never stays still. To listen to the wind is to hear the truth of impermanence expressed through sound. No gust lasts, no silence remains forever. One moment passes into the next without clinging. When you understand this deeply, you begin to see your own worries in the same way. Anxiety feels endless only when you believe it is permanent. But like the wind, it rises, shifts, and falls away. There is an old tale of a monk who meditated beside a bamboo grove each evening. The wind would rush through, filling the air with rustling. At first, he found it distracting. But as the seasons passed, he realized that the sound was never the same twice. Some nights it was gentle, other nights harsh, sometimes sudden, sometimes fading. He began to see his own thoughts reflected in that rustling, unpredictable, passing, never fixed. The realization freed him from the need to control them. He said to his students, "When you hear the wind, you hear the truth that nothing lasts. Why then cling to what was never yours to keep?" This teaching is central to easing the restless heart at night. Anxiety often grows from the illusion of permanence. You feel as though the problem, the pain, or the uncertainty will never end. The mind clings, replaying it endlessly, feeding fear. But when you bring the awareness of impermanence, You cut through that illusion. Just as no gust of wind can hold its strength forever, no feeling, no thought, no circumstance endures unchanged. To rest is to trust this truth, to let the current move without resistance. Modern science reflects this ancient insight. Research on emotional states shows that feelings, even intense ones, have natural lifespans. Neuroscientists found that most emotions, when left alone, last only about 90 seconds before the body resets. What prolongs them is the mind's constant replay, the clinging to stories. Anxiety becomes endless, not because of its nature, but because of our attachment to it. The wind teaches another way. It does not grasp the gust that just passed, nor hold the one about to come. It flows. When you learn to let feelings flow the same way, their grip weakens. In daily life, practicing impermanence changes how you face challenges. When success arrives, you do not cling to it as eternal. When failure comes, you do not despair, as though it will never pass. You meet both with the same openness. This perspective softens perfectionism, fear of loss, and the pressure to control everything. At night, this same perspective loosens anxiety. The thought that keeps you awake is no longer a prison when you see it as a passing breeze. It will not stay, and therefore it does not deserve your endless struggle. The whispering wind also reveals the beauty of change. Trees that sway in the wind grow stronger roots. Landscapes, shaped by currents, become more alive. Your own growth often comes through the winds of change, through transitions that may feel harsh in the moment, but shape you in ways that stillness cannot. To resist every change is to live rigidly, constantly broken by what cannot be stopped. To flow with it, like the wind itself, is to discover freedom. Anxiety fades when you stop fighting the truth that life moves. There is a tale from the Tibetan mountains of a hermit who lived in a cave where the wind howled for days each winter. Visitors once asked him how he endured such noise. He replied, "The wind is my scripture. Each howl teaches me that nothing stays. If even the mountains cannot resist change, why should I think my worries will?" His peace came not from silence, but from learning to hear impermanence in every gust. Sleep itself reflects this teaching. Your body drifts through cycles: light sleep, deep sleep, dream states, each shifting like currents of air. No stage lasts forever, yet each has its purpose. To sleep well is to allow these natural rhythms without resistance. Anxiety interrupts because it demands control, insisting the mind stay fixed. But rest deepens when you trust the body's natural flow, just as you trust the wind to shift on its own. In mindfulness practice, teachers sometimes guide students to listen to wind or breath as a meditation. Both remind us of impermanence. Each breath rises, pauses, and leaves. Each gust arrives and passes. By focusing on these movements, the mind learns to release clinging. Anxiety loses its weight because it no longer feels eternal. You learn to say, "This too is passing." Such words are not mere comfort, they are the deepest truth. Anxiety often thrives on the desire for certainty. The mind craves fixed answers, permanent ground. But life does not offer this. The wind teaches that movement itself is the ground, that certainty is found not in what stays, but in the fact that everything moves. To accept impermanence is to release the desperate need for permanence. In that release, anxiety dissolves. Sleep enters because you no longer demand stillness from a world that is always shifting. There is also humility in this lesson. The wind does not belong to anyone. It moves across villages, mountains, oceans, caring nothing for ownership. In the same way, your experiences, joys, sorrows, thoughts move through you, but are not truly yours. They are passing phenomena. When you cling to them as mine, you suffer. When you see them as currents passing through, you are free. At night, this humility allows you to rest without the heavy burden of possession. The worry is not yours to keep. The fear is not yours to own. They are winds moving through. Science shows that when people adopt this perspective, their bodies also respond. Heart rate slows, stress hormones decrease, and sleep becomes easier. Letting go of ownership over passing states literally shifts the nervous system into balance. The body knows how to rest when the mind stops grasping. The whispering wind also carries a gentler teaching about beauty. Many people love the sound of wind in leaves or grasses because it feels soothing, yet it is the same force that can also be harsh. This paradox mirrors life itself. Change can feel painful in one moment and beautiful in another. To embrace impermanence is to see both sides without judgment. In the context of rest, this means allowing even discomfort to be part of the flow. You do not need perfect conditions to sleep. You only need to stop resisting the conditions that exist. There is a final story of a teacher who told his students to hold their breath as long as they could. When they gasped for air, he said, "This is how you cling to what must pass." When you let go, breath returns freely. So it is with every experience. Clinging suffocates, release brings life. At night, holding tightly to thoughts suffocates rest. Letting them move like breath, like wind, restores your natural rhythm. And so, the whispering wind becomes a teacher of the heart. It shows that nothing you fear is permanent, that change is the law of life, that anxiety dissolves when you stop clinging to what must move. In the darkness of night, when the air stirs around you, you can hear this truth directly. Each current is a reminder, all things pass. With that knowledge, the restless mind softens, the anxious heart eases, and sleep arrives as naturally as the breeze fades into silence. The whispering wind has reminded us that everything moves and nothing lasts, that even the strongest storm eventually softens, and that by trusting this flow, we can release the weight of anxiety. Yet there is another sound that has guided seekers for centuries, a sound not carried by nature's breath, but by human hands shaping metal into a voice of stillness. As dusk settles over monasteries, a bell is struck, and its deep resonance spreads across fields and villages. To those who listen, it is more than sound. It is a signal to let go, to release attachments, to surrender the day's burdens, and to return to the calm that lies within. The bell has always been more than an instrument. In Buddhist practice, it is a reminder, a call to mindfulness, a boundary between the noise of the world and the silence of the heart. When the bell rings at dusk, monks stop their tasks, bow, and return to presence. The act itself teaches that release is not about removing life's challenges, but about pausing to see them differently. In the fading light, the bell tells us, "The day is complete. What is done. What is left will wait." This is the wisdom that allows rest to begin. There is an old story of a novice monk who struggled with endless thoughts during meditation. Each evening, as the bell rang, he found his mind still clinging to chores, conversations, and worries. One night he asked his teacher how to silence the noise inside. The teacher said, "When the bell sounds, do not hear it as metal striking. Hear it as your attachments dissolving." The next evening, when the bell rang, the monk pictured his worries scattering with each vibration. For the first time, he felt stillness. The teaching was not in the sound itself, but in the meaning he gave it. The bell became a doorway into letting go. This practice reflects a deeper truth. Release requires ritual. The human mind clings by habit, and habits are not broken by effort alone, but by replacing them with new patterns. The monastery bell creates such a pattern. It signals closure, inviting the mind to shift. In modern life, we often miss these transitions. Work flows into evening, screens glow into night, and the mind never receives the signal that it is time to let go. By creating your own form of bell, whether through sound, stillness, or ritual, you can restore this boundary. The brain responds powerfully to cues, and with them, rest becomes easier. Neuroscience has found that auditory signals, especially deep resonant tones, can trigger relaxation responses in the nervous system. Low-frequency vibrations, slow heart rate, lower blood pressure, and shift brain waves into calmer states. This is why bells, gongs, and chimes have been used across cultures for meditation. Their resonance does not simply fade into silence, it lingers, carrying the listener inward. When used at the end of the day, this sound helps the body know it is safe to release. The bell also carries symbolic meaning. Its shape, open and hollow, reflects emptiness, and its voice arises only when struck. This reminds us that calm is not separate from life's impacts. Just as the bell needs a strike to produce sound, our hearts often grow through challenges. Yet even when struck, the bell does not cling to the blow. It transforms it into resonance that fades into peace. To live like the bell is to accept life's strikes, but release them into sound, not carry them as scars. At night, this means letting the events of the day echo once and fade. No need to replay them endlessly. The sound has been made, let it dissolve. There is also a collective aspect to the bell. In monasteries, when it rings, every monk hears the same call. It unites them in shared presence. This teaches us that release is not only personal but communal. When you hear a bell, you remember that countless others are also letting go, also surrendering, also resting. You are not alone in this practice. This sense of shared release can ease the loneliness of struggle. Knowing others are also laying down their burdens makes your own release lighter. A folk tale from Vietnam tells of a village where each evening the monastery bell echoed across rice fields. Farmers, hearing it, would stop their work, set down their tools, and bow toward the sound. They said the bell reminded them that rice could wait, but the spirit could not. The harvest would always return, but the moment to be present would not. This wisdom applies equally to our own restless minds. The tasks, the worries, the lists, they will return. But the chance to rest, to be present, to release that moment, once lost, is gone. The bell teaches us to honor it. Modern rituals can adapt this lesson. Many people use gentle sounds, wind chimes by a window, a singing bowl at the end of meditation, or even the chime of a clock to mark closure. What matters is not the sound itself, but the meaning you assign. If you decide that each tone signals release, your body learns to respond. Over time, the simple act of hearing it becomes enough to guide you into calm. In this way, you create your own monastery bell at dusk, even in the midst of modern life. The bell also embodies time. It is struck at specific hours, dividing day from night, activity from rest. This rhythm teaches that release has its place. Many people resist rest because they feel it steals time from productivity, but the bell shows that rest is built into the rhythm of life. Just as breath requires exhale as well as inhale, life requires release as well as striving. The bell at dusk tells you, the time for striving is over. The time for release has come. In meditation practice, teachers often guide students to listen deeply to a bell. The instruction is to follow the sound until it disappears completely, hearing not only the strike but the fading resonance. This practice trains the mind to stay present, to notice subtlety, to appreciate the fading as much as the beginning. Applied to life, it teaches us to let attachments fade without clinging. Each worry, each desire, each memory can be heard as a bell arising, resonating, and dissolving. When you listen this way, sleep becomes easier because you are no longer chasing echoes. The bell's voice also connects to the body. Vibrations pass not only through the ear, but through the chest, resonating with the heart. Monks describe this as the bell speaking to the soul. In modern terms, vibration calms the vagus nerve, which regulates relaxation and sleep. This is why many find deep tones grounding. When you feel restless, letting sound wash through you can anchor you in the body, shifting you away from anxious thought. The bell thus becomes both symbol and tool, guiding you into calmness. There is another lesson in how the bell is treated. In temples it is approached with reverence. Monks bow before striking it, acknowledging its role as a teacher. This shows that release itself is sacred. To let go is not laziness but devotion, an honoring of life's rhythm. If you treat your nightly release with the same reverence, seeing rest as sacred, not optional, you create space for deeper healing. Sleep is not an afterthought, but a ritual of release. Stories tell of travelers arriving at monasteries just as dusk fell, hearing the bell echo through the valley. Some said the sound felt like forgiveness, as though their burdens were lifted with each tone. Others said it felt like coming home, as though the heart recognized its own rhythm in the fading resonance. These testimonies remind us that release is not abstract, but deeply felt. When you let go of the day, you experience a physical lightness, a softening of the chest, a loosening of the jaw. This is the body's way of saying, the bell has been heard. And so, the monastery bell at dusk becomes more than sound. It is a teacher of release, a guide into rhythm, a symbol of emptiness that transforms impact into resonance. It shows us that to end the day is not to lose, but to honor life's cycles. By creating space, by listening deeply, by assigning sacred meaning to closure, you prepare yourself for rest that is not shallow but complete. Each evening can hold its own bell, reminding you that attachments may arise, but they are not yours to carry into the night. The sound fades, the day fades, and in that fading lies the doorway to inner calm. The monastery bell at dusk taught us how to release the weight of the day, how to let sound itself guide us towards stillness. Yet even as the bell fades, there is another ancient symbol waiting to be understood. In temples across the world, a single candle is often lit during evening practice. Its glow offers warmth, but its true lesson lies not in how it shines, but in how it ends. The story of a candle's last flame speaks to endings, to transitions, and to the gentle acceptance that every night invites. Fire has always been a teacher in Buddhist thought. It is both life-giving and impermanent, fierce yet fragile. A candle burns steadily for hours, and then, in one final flicker, it goes out. This moment is not seen as tragedy, but as truth. Every flame has its time, and every ending carries its own peace. When monks speak of rest, they often compare it to a candle's last flame. The body and mind glow through the day, offering warmth and energy, and at night they naturally dim. To resist this dimming is to suffer, but to allow it is to honor the rhythm of life. There is a story of a master who held a candle before his students and asked them to watch it closely. The flame danced, wavered, and then burned evenly. Hours later, as the wax melted low, the flame weakened and went out. The master said, "This is every life, every day, every breath. To fight the ending is to fight nature. To accept it is to find peace." His students understood that nightly rest is itself a small rehearsal of letting go. Each time we sleep, we practice the art of surrender, releasing the flame of wakefulness without fear. This teaching reaches beyond sleep into how we approach transitions. Many resist endings of conversations, of relationships, of seasons clinging to the warmth of what has been. Yet every ending is also a beginning. The candle's flame, when it dies, becomes smoke rising into air, light stored in memory, warmth lingering in the room. In the same way, when the day ends, it does not vanish but transforms into the rest that sustains tomorrow. By accepting this transformation, you release anxiety about what is lost and rest into trust that nothing truly disappears, it only changes form. Modern psychology echoes this wisdom. Therapists who study resilience emphasize the importance of Closure rituals, small acts that help the mind accept endings without clinging. These rituals are like watching a candle burn out, guiding us gently into acceptance. People who practice such rituals before bed, writing down worries, dimming lights, or saying words of gratitude, find that sleep comes easier. The brain recognizes the transition and allows itself to rest. Just as the candle signals closure, these practices tell the nervous system it is safe to let go. The candle's flame also reveals the balance between effort and surrender. It burns only because wax and wick meet fire. Too much wax and it smothers, too little and it starves. The balance sustains it until its natural end. Our own energy works the same way. To live fully, we burn through activity, through connection, through thought. But if we never allow the flame to rest, we burn unevenly, either exhausting ourselves or losing purpose. Sleep is the balance, the natural dimming that prevents burnout. By honoring the nightly extinguishing of our flame, we preserve our ability to shine again at dawn. There is another story of a novice who feared death and clung desperately to life. His teacher gave him a candle and told him to watch it until it burned out. At first, the novice felt sorrow as the flame weakened, but then he noticed the beauty of its final flicker. It was delicate, graceful, and complete. He realized that endings are not enemies but teachers. Each night, when we surrender to sleep, we are not losing time but experiencing the grace of completion. The body, like the candle, rests so that new light may rise. In Buddhist practice, fire also symbolizes desire. It burns brightly, but consumes itself. Monks are taught not to extinguish desire by force, but to let it fade as the candle fades naturally when its fuel is no longer given. This too applies to rest. The desire to control sleep, to force it, often keeps us awake. But when we withdraw the fuel by releasing struggle, by loosening attachment, sleep arises naturally, and the flame of wakefulness fades without conflict. Scientific studies on sleep onset show that people who accept drowsiness instead of resisting it fall asleep more quickly. When participants were told to try to stay awake, many drifted off faster than when told to fall asleep now. This paradox mirrors the candle's teaching. The flame ends not by force, but by allowing conditions to complete themselves. Letting go, not grasping, is the key. The candle also speaks of presence. To watch a flame is to notice how it never holds still. It flickers, bends, stretches upward, contracts. Each moment is unique, yet the flame remains a flame. This is the nature of consciousness, ever-changing, never the same, twice, yet continuous. To see this clearly softens our fear of change. We realize that every moment of wakefulness, every stage of sleep, is simply another flicker of the flame. By honoring each without demand, we move through them peacefully. In monasteries, candles are often used during evening chants. Their light softens the space, and when the chants end, the flames are extinguished one by one. This ritual reflects impermanence and closure. It shows that even sacred practice ends, and its ending is part of its beauty. To bring this into daily life, you can create your own ritual of extinguishing, turning off lights slowly, closing your eyes with gratitude, breathing as though you are blowing out the flame of the day. These acts align your rhythm with the candle's truth. Completion is not loss, but preparation for renewal. Another lesson comes from the wax itself. As it melts, it feeds the flame, disappearing to give light. In the same way, each day we give our energy to tasks, relationships, and experiences. At night, we must allow what has been spent to rest. To expect constant burning without replenishment is to deny the law of nature. By respecting your own limits, by recognizing the wax of your body and mind must be renewed, You honor the rhythm that sustains life. There is also a spiritual dimension to the candle's last flame. Monks speak of nirvana as the extinguishing of the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion. This extinguishing is not destruction but peace, like a flame going out naturally. Each night, as you surrender to sleep, you experience a small reflection of this peace. The fires of striving fade, the mind lets go, and you enter the quiet that nourishes the soul. By embracing this nightly extinguishing, you cultivate a deeper trust in life's larger cycles. Even in science, the metaphor holds. Sleep researchers describe the homeostatic drive for rest as a kind of pressure that builds during the day, like wax melting down. When it reaches its point, the flame of wakefulness dims and sleep begins. Fighting this process only creates imbalance. Allowing it brings harmony. This is the candle's teaching expressed in biology. The story of the candle's last flame teaches us to accept endings, to honor transitions, and to rest without fear. It shows that completion is not failure but fulfillment, that to extinguish is not to vanish but to transform. Each night, as your eyes close and the flame of wakefulness flickers out, you are not losing yourself but returning to the silence that makes new light possible. To live well is to burn brightly by day and to surrender gracefully by night, knowing that both are sacred parts of the same rhythm. The candle's last flame has shown us how endings are not to be feared but embraced, how each transition holds its own peace, and how surrendering to night is as natural as wax yielding to fire. From this teaching of impermanence, we move to another, one that speaks not of flickering light, but of steady endurance. When the flame has gone out and darkness fills the room, the head finds its place upon the pillow. Yet in many old folk tales, the pillow was never seen as a mere object of comfort, but as a sacred mountain, a quiet presence that absorbs the weight of suffering, holding it silently until the soul has rested. The mountain has always symbolized patience in Buddhist and folk traditions. It does not rush, it does not resist, it simply endures. The pillow, soft and close to us each night, becomes its reflection. When we rest our head, it is as if we are laying our burdens on a mountain vast enough to contain them all. In this way, the pillow is not only a place for the body, but a teacher for the mind. It shows us that suffering can be held, absorbed, and transformed without struggle. One story from the rural temples of China tells of a wandering monk who had no possessions except a single pillow. Villagers mocked him, saying it was a useless burden for one who should travel light. But he explained that each night, when he placed his head upon it, he whispered his worries into it, as though speaking to a mountain. The pillow never judged, never answered, yet each morning he rose lighter. The people came to understand that the pillow was not for comfort alone, but for the practice of release, a symbol of trust in something larger than oneself. This practice teaches that patience is not simply waiting, but allowing space for healing to unfold. The mountain does not hurry its growth. Seasons pass, and still it stands. In the same way, when you rest upon your pillow, you are invited to stop demanding instant relief. Anxiety, pain, and grief do not vanish in a single night. But when laid upon the mountain of patience, they lose their sharpness. The pillow becomes a vessel where time works quietly, softening what you cannot yet resolve. Modern science supports this view in unexpected ways. Researchers studying the psychology of sleep found that physical gestures of release, such as laying one's head down, create signals to the brain that it is safe to let go. This simple act tells the nervous system to shift from fight and flight into rest and digest. In a sense, the pillow becomes an anchor, absorbing the day's intensity and returning stability. It mirrors the mountain not by standing tall, but by holding steady against the weight we bring. The folk tales often describe pillows as more than fabric and stuffing. In some regions, They were said to contain the wisdom of mountains, believed to draw away nightmares or absorb sorrows. Children were told to whisper their troubles into the pillow before sleep, trusting that the mountain within would carry them away by morning. This practice shows a deep understanding of how humans need symbolic acts of release. Just as writing down worries can ease the mind, so can giving them to the pillow, letting it serve as a silent companion. The mountain also teaches endurance without resistance. It does not fight the storm, nor does it collapse under the weight of snow. It simply bears what comes, knowing that time will change it. In rest, we are invited to do the same. Lying upon the pillow, we give our suffering to patience, trusting that tomorrow may bring change we cannot yet see. This patience is not weakness but wisdom. It tells us that healing cannot be forced, that some knots untangle only in silence and time. There is a parable of a young monk who grew frustrated because his prayers did not bring quick relief from sorrow. His teacher told him to place his pillow upon the ground and sit before it. "This pillow is a mountain," the teacher said. "Strike it if you must, weep into it if you must, but notice how it endures." The monk did so, and as days passed, he learned that his pain was not erased but held. The mountain did not fight him, nor did it hurry him. In this reflection, he discovered patience, and with it, peace. From a psychological perspective, this reflects how resilience is cultivated. Studies show that people who practice acceptance of suffering, rather than constant resistance, experience less long-term stress. Patience itself reduces the impact of pain because it removes the urgency to escape. The pillow, as mountain, becomes a nightly teacher of this resilience. Each time you lay down, you are practicing surrender, entrusting your burdens to something larger, allowing yourself to breathe without demand for instant resolution. The symbolism deepens when we consider the mountain's silence. A mountain does not speak, yet its presence teaches more than words. The pillow too speaks in silence. It asks nothing, requires no explanation, and offers support without condition. For those who carry heavy thoughts, this silent companionship is healing. Words are not always needed. Sometimes the simple act of being held is enough. This truth applies not only to rest but to life. Patience often means holding space without rushing to fix. The folk traditions also saw the pillow as a vessel of dreams, linking the waking world with the hidden landscapes of the night. Mountains in myth were often places where gods or spirits dwelled, where visions could be received. To rest your head on the mountain was to open yourself to guidance that came not through effort, but through surrender. Dreams, in this view, are not random, but part of the healing work of patience, showing you slowly what your waking mind cannot yet grasp. Science echoes this with studies of REM sleep, where the brain processes emotions and integrates memories. What feels unresolved by day is often sorted by night, not through conscious control but through the natural work of dreaming. The pillow, as mountain, reflects this process. You lay your worries down, and in silence, healing takes place beyond your control. The mountain's patience also teaches us about perspective. To stand upon a mountain is to see far beyond the valleys below. In rest, when we surrender to patience, our inner view expands. What felt overwhelming in the moment may appear smaller when seen from the height of renewed clarity. The pillow, though close and small, becomes the gateway to this expanded view, for only by resting can we rise to see differently. There is a tale of an old woman who lost her son in war. Each night she wept into her pillow until she dreamed of a mountain. In the dream, the mountain told her, "I have held countless storms, and still I stand. Let me hold yours." She woke with tears, but also with calm, feeling as though her sorrow had been shared. The story spread, and villagers began to speak of pillows as sacred mountains that absorb grief. In this way, folk wisdom carried the truth that patience and endurance are as healing as action. From a practical view, this teaches us to approach rest not as a battle but as an act of entrusting. Instead of wrestling with thoughts, you give them to the pillow, to the mountain of patience. You allow the night to hold them while you restore. This shifts the relationship with suffering. It no longer feels like something you must solve immediately, but something you can set down for a while. In modern therapeutic approaches, similar practices are used. Cognitive behavioral strategies sometimes invite people to postpone worry by placing concerns in a symbolic container, allowing the mind to rest. The pillow, as mountain, is the container. Its symbolic weight makes the act meaningful, helping the nervous system release tension. The benefit is not only psychological but physical. Muscles soften, breathing slows, and sleep deepens. And so, the pillow as a mountain of patience teaches us to release suffering into something steady and vast. It reminds us that healing is not always quick, that endurance itself is sacred, that silence can hold what words cannot. Each night, when you rest your head, you are not simply lying down, you are placing your burdens on the mountain, trusting it to hold them while you find renewal. In the morning, you rise lighter, your suffering softened, your heart steadier, ready once more to meet the day. The pillow as a mountain of patience showed us how suffering can be laid down and absorbed in silence, how rest becomes deeper when we allow the night to hold what we cannot resolve. Yet there is another image, one that marks the threshold between the outer world and the inner sanctuary. In countless temples across Asia, pilgrims remove their shoes before entering sacred halls. This act is simple but profound, a gesture of leaving behind the dust of the road, the weight of travel, the burdens carried. In folk wisdom, this practice extends to sleep itself. Before crossing into the sanctuary of night, one must also leave the shoes of the day at the door. Shoes carry more than feet. They carry journeys. They hold the dirt of places we have walked, the pressures of steps we have taken, the strain of distances covered. In the same way, our minds carry the weight of the day, conversations, decisions, emotions, and expectations. To enter rest while still wearing these is to bring the dust of the road into the sanctuary of sleep. The teaching is clear. If you want the night to be pure, you must first remove what you have carried. There is a tale of a weary traveler who came to a monastery seeking food and rest. As he reached the door, the master stopped him and said, "Remove your shoes." The traveler obeyed, but the master pointed again and said, "Now, remove the road as well." Confused, the traveler asked what he meant. The master replied, "Your feet are clean, but your heart is still walking. Leave the road outside, or you will never rest within." The story reveals that rituals of release are not only physical but mental. Taking off the shoes becomes a metaphor for putting down the endless road of thought. In psychological terms, this reflects the importance of transitions. The human mind struggles when boundaries are blurred, when work seeps into night, when conversations replay into silence, when unresolved tasks haunt the body at rest. Creating symbolic acts of closure helps the brain shift states. Just as removing shoes signals the body that it has entered a safe space, intentional rituals before bed tell the mind that the day is complete. Without such acts, the nervous system remains alert, holding the weight of the road. Monks often describe shoes as containers of karma, holding the imprints of where one has been. To remove them before stepping into the sacred space is to acknowledge that the past steps need not dictate the present moment. Applied to sleep, this means recognizing that what you walk through today, mistakes, victories, conflicts, does not need to follow you into the night. You may acknowledge them, but you do not need to carry them across the threshold. Science supports this practice in surprising ways. Studies on bedtime routines show that people who engage in simple symbolic gestures, such as washing hands, dimming lights, or writing down the day's events, fall asleep faster and wake more refreshed. These acts serve as cues to the brain, much like removing shoes, that one has left behind the outer world. The physical act helps the mind believe what it might otherwise resist, that it is time to rest. There is a folk custom in parts of Japan where travelers, upon arriving at inns, remove their shoes and lightly tap them together before placing them neatly at the entrance. Elders say this gesture is not only to keep the house clean, but to release the dust of worry and conflict. The act of tapping symbolizes shaking off the invisible burdens that cling to us. In this way, the shoes become not only footwear, but a container for what we choose not to bring inside. When applied to rest, this custom teaches us to tap off the lingering anxieties before lying down. Another story speaks of a pilgrim who traveled with shoes worn thin. When he finally reached a temple, he placed them outside and bowed deeply, thanking them for carrying him but not asking them to follow him inside. The lesson is humility and gratitude, to acknowledge the day's journey, to thank the body and the mind for carrying us, but also to know when to let them rest. Gratitude itself becomes a way of removing shoes, releasing struggle with appreciation rather than resentment. The symbolism reaches deeper when we see the bedroom as a sacred hall. Just as temples are kept pure by removing shoes, the space of sleep is kept sacred by removing mental burdens. To treat the bed as a sanctuary means not cluttering it with devices, arguments, or unfinished tasks. This is not about strict rules, but about honoring the threshold. If you want the night to restore you, you must treat it as sacred ground. Psychologists studying sleep quality often emphasize sleep associations, the way the brain links bed with activity. When beds are used for work or worry, the brain struggles to shift into rest. But when beds are linked with safety, calm, and release, sleep becomes easier. The practice of symbolically removing shoes reinforces this association. It teaches the body and mind. This space is different. This space is sacred. This space is for renewal only. There is also wisdom in the way shoes rest once removed. They are set aside, not destroyed. This teaches us that letting go does not mean denial. The tasks of the day, the struggles, the journeys, they remain, waiting for tomorrow. But they need not enter the night. To rest does not mean erasing responsibility, but pausing it. Shoes remind us that we can pick up the road again when dawn comes. Tonight, however, belongs to sanctuary. From a physiological perspective, this pause allows the body to heal. Stress hormones decline, heart rate slows, muscles repair, the immune system strengthens. All of this requires the body to believe it is safe, that the road has truly been left outside. Carrying the road inward keeps the body in defense, preventing the deep healing of sleep. To remove the shoes of the day is to allow the body to stop defending and start restoring. Another lesson emerges when we consider the shape of shoes. They are molded to protect feet against rough terrain. Yet once removed, the feet are free, soft, vulnerable, connected to the ground. In this vulnerability lies healing. To rest fully, we must remove not only physical shoes, but also the psychological armor we wear, roles, defenses, identities. Night is not the time to be strong or perform. It is the time to be bare, soft, and open to renewal. There is a practice in some Buddhist traditions where practitioners pause before bed and visualize placing their worries, regrets, and unfinished duties into their shoes. They then picture leaving those shoes outside the bedroom door. This visualization is powerful because the mind responds to symbols as if they were physical. By placing the weight into the shoes, you free yourself to cross into sleep unburdened. In the morning, you may choose to put them back on or not. The choice becomes conscious rather than automatic. In many folk tales, pilgrims who refused to remove their shoes were barred from sacred halls. The lesson was not about cleanliness, but about pride. To cling to the road is to deny the need for release. In our own lives, To refuse rest, to carry everything into the night, is to deny our need for sanctuary. The consequence is exhaustion, confusion, and suffering. But when we humble ourselves enough to set the shoes aside, we receive the gift of restoration. And so, the pilgrim's shoes left at the door become a timeless metaphor. They teach us that before stepping into the sanctuary of sleep, we must acknowledge the weight we carry and release it. We must treat rest as sacred, create rituals of transition, and honor the threshold between outer life and inner renewal. Each night becomes a pilgrimage, each bed a temple, each act of laying down a step into sanctuary. By leaving the shoes of the day behind, you enter the night lighter, freer, and ready to be restored. Leaving the pilgrim's shoes at the door has shown us the wisdom of releasing what clings to the body and the mind, of honoring the threshold between the dust of the road and the sanctuary of rest. Yet once we step across that threshold, there arises another challenge: what to do with the vulnerability of being unarmed, of standing bare without the armor of the day. In Buddhist-inspired folklore, this challenge is expressed through the story of the celestial carp, a fish that must leap across a moonlit stream to find freedom. Its story speaks of courage not in force, but in the willingness to rise from water into air, to embrace risk, and to discover that vulnerability itself is a form of strength. The carp has long held symbolic meaning in Buddhist and Asian traditions. In rivers, it swims against the current, never turning back, enduring obstacles with persistence. But the celestial carp goes further. It is said to leap toward the light of the moon reflected on the stream, crossing from one realm into another. In this act lies a teaching about the courage to move beyond comfort. Water is safe, familiar, and sustaining, yet the carp must leave it, even briefly, to discover a freedom greater than what it has always known. In the same way, we are often asked to step beyond the familiar patterns of thought and protection in order to grow, to heal, and to rest. There is a tale of a fisherman who once watched a carp leap from a stream at night, its scales glimmering like silver under the moon. He asked a monk nearby why the fish would risk leaving the safety of water. The monk replied, "Because it knows that only by rising above its element can it glimpse a greater world." The fisherman understood that the leap itself was an act of courage, not for survival alone, but for vision. For us, the leap happens when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, when we step beyond the habits of control and into the openness where rest and renewal dwell. Courage in vulnerability is not about heroism in the conventional sense. It is not charging into battle or conquering fear with force. Instead, it is the quiet bravery of allowing the self to be exposed, of acknowledging uncertainty, of trusting the process even without guarantees. Just as the carp must trust the water to catch it again after the leap, we must trust life to hold us when we release control. In the context of rest, this means letting go of defenses, the endless planning, the vigilance, the replaying of mistakes, and allowing the night to carry us. Science has shown that vulnerability is essential for well-being. Studies on emotional openness reveal that suppressing feelings leads to higher stress, poorer health, and disrupted sleep. By contrast, those who practice openness, sharing emotions, accepting imperfection, embracing uncertainty, experience greater resilience and deeper rest. The carp's leap is a metaphor for this openness. To stay submerged in constant defense is to remain safe but limited. To leap is to expose oneself, and in that exposure, to find freedom. In folk traditions, the celestial carp is also connected to transformation. Legends tell of carp that leap high enough to reach the heavens, becoming dragons. The leap itself is the bridge from ordinary to extraordinary. Applied to life, this means that moments of vulnerability, times when we step beyond what is safe, can be the very moments that lead to transformation. Rest too requires transformation, from wakefulness to sleep, from tension to ease, from control to surrender. Each night we enact this leap, crossing from one realm to another, trusting the unseen. The carp story also teaches persistence. Many fish may try to leap, but only a few succeed. The courage lies not only in leaping once, but in continuing despite falls. This reflects our own practice of rest. Some nights, sleep may not come easily. The mind may resist, the body may hold tension. But to persist in the practice of letting go, to try again with patience, is to embody the carp spirit. Each attempt is a leap, and each leap teaches courage. There is another parable of a young monk who was afraid of failure. His teacher took him to a stream and pointed to carp trying to leap up a small waterfall. Many fell back, but they continued again and again. "Do you see?" the teacher said. "They are not ashamed to fall. Their courage is not in succeeding, but in continuing." The monk realized that his own fear of mistakes was what bound him, not the mistakes themselves. In the same way, anxiety before sleep often comes from fearing failure to rest. Yet if we approach rest like the carp, without shame in the attempt, with persistence in practice, sleep becomes less a struggle and more a natural leap. The moonlit stream itself carries symbolism. Water reflects the moon, creating a vision that draws the carp upward. The reflection is not the moon itself, but a guide, a light pointing beyond. In Buddhist thought, such reflections remind us of illusions, things that appear real but are fleeting. The carp leaps not at the moon, but at its reflection, yet the act still leads to transformation. For us, this means that even small acts of courage, even leaps toward imperfect goals, can open the way to freedom. We need not wait for perfect conditions to release ourselves. Even imperfect attempts carry power. From a scientific lens, the act of courage releases tension. Psychologists studying exposure therapy found that facing vulnerability reduces fear over time, retraining the nervous system to respond calmly. Each leap into openness makes the next easier. In rest, this means practicing vulnerability by allowing thoughts to rise without judgment, by letting the body soften even when fears linger, by trusting that release will come with practice. Over time, the nervous system learns to let go more easily, and sleep deepens. The carp's leap also symbolizes transcendence of boundaries. Fish belong to water, yet in leaping, they briefly enter the realm of air. This crossing shows that identity is not fixed, that roles and states are fluid. We too are not bound only to activity or thought. We can cross into stillness, into rest, into silence. The leap shows us that we are more than our routines, more than our anxieties. Sleep is the nightly act of transcending the boundaries of wakefulness, stepping into another realm of being. There is a folk saying that the carp leaps highest when the water is calm. This teaches that courage often arises not from chaos, but from inner steadiness. To cultivate calm through breath, mindfulness, or gentle ritual prepares us for the leap of vulnerability. Just as the carp gathers strength before rising, we gather inner calm before releasing into rest. The practice of slowing down before bed, of quieting the mind, is the preparation for this leap. In another tale, an elder told children watching carp at night, "Do not laugh when they fall. Each leap is sacred, for in each attempt lies freedom." This echoes the truth that vulnerability itself, regardless of outcome, is courage. When we allow ourselves to be open, even if sleep does not come instantly, we are still practicing freedom from control. We are still leaping toward the moonlit stream. The celestial carp thus becomes a symbol not only of courage, but of the delicate strength found in vulnerability. It shows that freedom is not won by endless defense, but by daring to rise beyond it. It teaches that transformation often comes through exposure, through persistence, through trust in what cannot be guaranteed. Each night, as we lay down and release control, we too leap across the moonlit stream, leaving behind the safety of constant activity and entering the freedom of rest. To honor the carp is to honor the courage in ourselves. Not the loud courage of conquest, but the quiet bravery of letting go, of being seen, of allowing imperfection, of trusting the night. It is to recognize that vulnerability is not weakness, but the very condition for growth and renewal. In this way, the leap of the celestial carp becomes our own, teaching us how to cross from the road of the day into the sanctuary of sleep, and how to rise again, renewed, when dawn returns. The leap of the celestial carp has taught us that freedom often comes through the courage to rise from what is familiar, to step into vulnerability, and to trust that the current will catch us again. Yet even the strongest leap must eventually return to stillness. After every act of movement comes a pause, and it is in this pause that transformation deepens. Monks have long known that true power does not lie only in the words of their sutra chants, but in the silence that surrounds them. The spaces between sound carry their own wisdom, teaching that rest itself can become meditation, and that healing flows most strongly, not in constant effort, but in the quiet that follows. When chants echo through a temple, their rhythm creates waves of sound, but between the words there is a gap, a moment of emptiness that holds just as much meaning as the syllables. The silence is not absence but presence. It is where the heart feels the resonance, where the body absorbs the vibration, where the mind settles. To rest is to enter this same silence. Sleep is not made of words or actions, but of the pause that lies between days, the quiet space where being replaces doing. In many traditions, students are taught to pay attention not only to the sound of a chant, but to the stillness that follows. A master once told his disciple, "The sutra ends, but the silence continues." If you can hear the silence, you will understand more than the words could ever teach. The disciple later described that silence as the first time he truly felt at peace, as though the world had stopped pressing upon him. In the same way, when we lie down to rest, the healing often begins not in what we think or do, but in the space we allow ourselves to enter. Modern neuroscience supports this understanding. Studies show that silence activates brain regions associated with self-reflection and emotional regulation. Even short periods of quiet reduce stress hormones, lower blood pressure, and improve sleep quality. Silence is not empty, it is restorative. The nervous system uses it to reset, to repair, to balance. In a world filled with constant noise, the absence of sound becomes medicine. Pauses also teach patience. In chanting, the silence between phrases cannot be rushed. It arrives in its own time, and those listening must simply wait. This waiting is not wasted, but sacred. Applied to rest, this means that sleep too must be received with patience. Many grow anxious when sleep does not come immediately, yet the silence teaches us to wait without struggle. The pause has its own purpose, and to honor it is to find calm even before sleep arrives. There is a story from a temple in Korea where a monk led chanting each evening. After every verse, he extended the pause longer than expected, so long that novices fidgeted in discomfort. When asked why, he replied, "Because in that silence, your heart reveals itself. The chant is the key, but the silence is the door." His lesson was that we often run from silence, filling it with thought or movement, but in doing so, we miss its healing. By learning to rest in the pause, we discover that silence itself is a teacher. The silence between chants also embodies impermanence. Sound arises, echoes, and fades. No note lasts forever, and no silence is final. Each pause gives birth to the next sound, and each sound returns to silence. This rhythm mirrors the cycle of life and rest. Each day rises with activity, fades into night, and returns again. To resist silence is to resist half of life itself. When we accept silence as natural, we ease into rest without fear, trusting the cycle to continue. In daily life, The practice of silence can be cultivated in small ways. Setting aside moments without music, without screens, without speech, allows the mind to reset. These pauses, though brief, prepare the body for deeper rest at night. Just as monks integrate silence into chanting, we can integrate quiet into our routines, letting it become part of our rhythm rather than something unusual. Over time, silence becomes familiar, even comforting. The power of silence is also relational. In chanting, the shared pause unites everyone. Listeners breathe together, hearts synchronize, and a collective stillness arises. In families or communities, silence can serve the same purpose. Sitting quietly with loved ones, without the need for words, creates bonds deeper than conversation. To share silence before sleep, perhaps through a few breaths together, can foster calm and connection, easing the transition into rest. There is also a spiritual dimension. In Buddhism, ultimate truth is often described as beyond words, beyond concepts. Sutras point toward it, but they cannot contain it. The silence between chants is said to hint at this truth more clearly than language ever could. For rest, this means that true healing cannot always be explained or measured. It happens in the unseen, in the pauses, in the surrender beyond understanding. To allow silence is to allow mystery, to let healing occur without demanding to know how. Science too confirms that the brain requires downtime for integration. During quiet wakefulness and sleep, the brain consolidates memories, organizes experiences, and generates insight. Without silence, these processes are disrupted. The silence between chants mirrors this biological truth. Pauses are not empty, but essential. Rest, in its deepest sense, is the body and mind silence between the chants of daily life. In some folk tales, silence itself was personified as a gentle spirit who walked between the notes of chanting, carrying away worries and returning peace. Villagers believed that if you listened closely during the pauses, you could hear your own burdens being lifted. Though symbolic, this belief reflects a deep human need to see silence not as void but as active, as a friend that heals. To bring this view into our own nights is to see stillness not as emptiness but as presence. The silence between sutra chants teaches us to value what is often overlooked, to honor pauses as much as action, to see rest as sacred rather than wasted. It reminds us that healing is not always loud, not always visible, but often found in the quiet spaces where nothing seems to happen. Each night, when you close your eyes, you are entering that pause, that sacred silence between the chants of your life. To rest deeply is to hear that silence and let it work within you, carrying you into renewal without struggle. The silence between sutra chants revealed how healing does not only live in sound, but in the space around it, in the pauses that allow the heart to settle and the mind to reset. Yet silence itself opens the doorway to another mystery, one that unfolds not in waking hours but in the hidden landscapes of dreams. Within these unseen depths lies an image treasured in Buddhist imagination, the Bodhi tree, under which the Buddha awakened, extending its roots deeper into the earth even while the branches above remain still. To dream of such roots is to glimpse how the subconscious heals in ways we cannot see, how growth continues below the surface while the outer self rests. Roots have long been a symbol of stability, depth, and unseen strength. The Bodhi tree's roots in particular represent the grounding of wisdom into the soil of existence. In dreams, these roots often appear as living forces, spreading silently through darkness, anchoring life with quiet persistence. This imagery reminds us that healing often takes place beyond awareness. Just as roots expand unseen, your body and mind repair themselves while you sleep, weaving resilience into the depths of your being without requiring your conscious effort. There is a story told of a monk who dreamed night after night of sitting beneath a vast tree. Each dream was the same. While the branches swayed gently, the roots stretched deeper into the earth. At first, he did not understand the meaning, but with time, he realized the tree reflected himself. Though his outward practice seemed still, beneath the surface his discipline, patience, and compassion were taking root. His teacher later told him, "The strongest growth often happens where eyes cannot see." In the same way, when we sleep, we may think nothing is happening, yet the deepest healing occurs in silence, beneath awareness. Modern science confirms this truth. During deep sleep, tissues repair, immune cells multiply, and the brain's glymphatic system clears toxins built up during the day. Emotional processing happens in dream states, reorganizing memory and softening trauma. None of this is visible, yet it shapes health profoundly. Like roots nourishing the tree from below, sleep nourishes us from within. To dream of roots is to acknowledge this hidden labor, to trust the subconscious and the body to do what the waking mind cannot. The Bodhi tree itself carries the ultimate symbolism of awakening. Under its shade, Siddhartha Gautama faced his doubts, his fears, and his temptations until he reached enlightenment. But what made the tree sacred was not only its branches but its roots, anchoring it through storms and droughts. In dreams, roots often signify that the foundations of wisdom are being strengthened. Even when life above feels uncertain or restless, there is growth below. Rest allows these roots to spread, ensuring stability when challenges return. There is also a lesson in surrender. Roots grow by yielding to soil, winding around rocks, finding paths of least resistance. They do not push straight through every obstacle but adapt with patience. Dreams of roots remind us that healing unfolds in the same way. It may not follow the straight path we expect, but it finds its way nonetheless. To trust your subconscious healing is to allow this winding process, knowing that even if you cannot see progress, it is happening. In folk tales, villagers often spoke of sacred trees whispering in dreams, telling them where to plant crops or how to resolve disputes. These stories reflected a deep trust in the wisdom of roots. People believed that trees, anchored so firmly, held knowledge of endurance. In modern terms, this mirrors how dreams often reveal hidden insights. The subconscious, working through symbols and images, provides guidance that the waking mind cannot reach. Rest is therefore not idle but fertile, allowing the roots of intuition to grow. The imagery of roots also speaks to interconnectedness. Beneath forests, trees share nutrients and signals through vast root systems. In Buddhist thought, this mirrors interdependence. No being exists in isolation. Dreams of roots spreading may reflect the subconscious healing of relationships, the unseen ways we are connected to others. Sleep becomes not only personal restoration, but communal balance, as the subconscious processes bonds, grievances, and compassion. Psychological research supports this. Studies show that during REM sleep, social and emotional memories are consolidated, shaping how we relate to others. This unseen process strengthens empathy and reduces reactivity. Just as roots feed not only one tree but the entire forest, subconscious healing during rest nurtures our relationships and connections. Another aspect of the dream of roots is depth. While branches reach upward toward light, roots delve downward into darkness. This duality teaches balance. Growth is not only reaching higher but also sinking deeper. Dreams of roots remind us that descending into the subconscious, into unacknowledged feelings and forgotten memories, is part of healing. Sleep provides the safe space for this descent, a place where the mind can process what is too heavy for daylight. There is a parable of a novice who feared his dark dreams, thinking they showed weakness. His teacher told him, "Roots grow in darkness, not in light. Without them, no tree stands." The novice came to understand that even disturbing dreams were part of growth, the subconscious working through hidden burdens. The healing was not always gentle, but it was necessary. Rest is the soil where such growth takes place. From a physiological perspective, dreams often integrate experiences and reduce emotional charge. What feels overwhelming by day can become softened by night. This mirrors the way roots transform harsh soil into nourishment. The subconscious takes the rough fragments of experience and reshapes them into resilience. To dream of roots is to trust that even pain can be composted into growth. Roots also embody patience. They grow slowly, unseen, often over years. In the same way, healing does not always reveal itself quickly. Dreams of roots remind us to honor this slow work. Each night contributes a little more. Each rest adds depth. To rush healing is to pull at roots before they are ready. To trust the process is to let them spread naturally. The Bodhi tree's roots in dreams symbolize anchoring during change. While branches may sway with winds, roots hold firm. For those who feel unstable, such dreams are reminders that the subconscious is quietly stabilizing, weaving strength beneath turbulence. Sleep anchors us even when waking life feels uncertain. In practice, you can honor this teaching by approaching sleep as fertile soil rather than wasted time. Instead of resenting rest, treat it as the ground where roots deepen. Journaling dreams, meditating on images of trees, or simply reflecting on growth beneath awareness can help cultivate this perspective. By doing so, you strengthen trust in the unseen healing of sleep. And so, the dream of the Bodhi tree's roots reveals that rest is never empty. Beneath the stillness of night, the subconscious works with patience and depth, anchoring wisdom, transforming experience, and weaving resilience. Like roots spreading unseen, your healing unfolds quietly, preparing you to rise stronger with each dawn. To surrender to sleep is to let the roots grow, to trust the soil of silence, and to allow the unseen to carry you toward wholeness. The dream of the Bodhi tree's roots reminded us that growth often happens unseen, that the subconscious works quietly in the depths while the surface rests. Yet not all hidden places are soft soil. Some are hollow chambers where every sound returns amplified, where silence itself has a voice. In Buddhist stories, caves became such places, settings where hermits withdrew from the world, not to escape, but to confront the echoes within. The cave does not invent voices, it only reflects what is brought into it. In the same way, the night reflects the contents of the mind, amplifying thoughts and feelings we tried to bury. Stories of hermits entering caves teach us how to face these echoes, how to listen rather than resist, and how to find wisdom in the reflections of the soul. A tale is told of a solitary monk who spent months in a mountain cave. At first, he was tormented by the sound of his own chanting.